your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Chrissie is hilarious.
Chrissie, have you ever heard of the comedian Basha K. Ali?
No, that sounds like something you yell out before you blow up a plane.
Basha K. Ali!
30 seconds remaining.
But you know what good thing to say? I doubt people stand up to something. I have no disrespect for you at all.
I was very confused by the title, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that's also what we call it when Ash takes off his shirt. I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Rumble, Rockfin, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, MySpace. No, probably not on MySpace. Please like and subscribe. Subscribe to me on YouTube. I think I've just hit 99,000 subscribers, which means I'm only 1,000 away from 100,000 subscribers. And I'm going to put that silver play button right there. And I'm going to touch it like the Apollo stump before every show. Thank you guys. Very exciting stuff. I'm very excited to have my guest today. I'm definitely a fan of his content. You can follow him on YouTube, on Twitter. He is he's a common sense commentator for uncommon times. I like that. He's also the host of his very own show here on YouTube. Welcome to the Chrissie Mayr podcast for the first time, DeVory Darkins.
Thank you.
Hello.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me, Chrissie.
I love your set. Oh, look at you. You have the silver button there too.
I do, yes. I was told by my wife that they downsized. She has one too, but it's like twice the size. So I think
Really?
shrinkflation got to Google as well.
Unbelievable. The eggs are smaller, there's fewer chips in cereal,
Right.
and the play buttons are smaller. Oh, I didn't know your wife did content too.
Yeah, she does.
What's
She
her
has
name?
her name is Kennedy. She has a company called Love or Earth Co. It's zero waste products for the home and lifestyle, healthier
wow.
beauty soaps and things like that. So she has a YouTube channel where she shows people how to use all of that stuff.
That's
it's really
awesome.
good.
I'm
Great
really good at
person,
I
very
truly will check that out because I just had a baby like 6-7 months ago, and
Mhm.
one of the biggest overhauls I did was in all the products that I use because there's so many just hormone disruptors and just a lot of funky ingredients in the stuff that I had been using for years. So that's really cool. And what a good husband you are to promote her before you even talk about yourself. Very cool.
yeah.
And breaking news for everybody listening to this live, Joe Rogan has officially endorsed Trump. Maybe not a surprise to anybody who had been watching his last few episodes. I mean, he had, of course, Trump on, he had JD Vance on, he had Elon on, he had Joe Fetterman on. Oh, John Fetterman.
Yeah, he did.
And I think that the Fetterman appearance was just to prove to Kamala, like, look, this guy's brain damaged, and he still made it on and did a couple hours. So here is Rogan's tweet here. The great and powerful Elon Musk, if it wasn't for him, we'd be fucked. He makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump that you'll hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement of Trump. Enjoy the podcast. Wow, and that just came out an hour ago.
That's him with Elon Musk, right?
Yes.
On the podcast?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, he just had Elon. That came out today or just now.
Yeah, I was not paying attention. I did not know that.
There's only so much like that we can this election cycle is crazy. There is just nonstop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's wild.
It's crazy. I mean, think about where we were in May and like everything that's happened since then.
Yeah, 2 assassination attempts, and I was just realizing this, I was talking to my husband about it, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, all of his, New York court shenanigans seem to have quietly all just gone away," and I think we
Hmm.
take that for granted, like, he really could have been kneecapped by all that stuff, and,
Right.
um, I think once the dust settles, I'm gonna look more deeply into that because I think it could have been really bad. I think like,
Of
they really
course.
were throwing everything they could at him.
Of course. I always say that, like, if those things were really legitimate, then, it would have run its course already. But the fact that they waited so long and that they've had such a hard time, now they clearly saw that it was so hard that they had to, what happened in New York, right, where everyone was pretty much in on it, and not in the sense that people woke up in the morning on that were part of the jury were looking to get him. It was more like the judge changed the laws, right? He changed the rules to the game in the courtroom to make sure there was no way that the jury wouldn't convict him. So, you know, having said that, that was the only way they were ever going to be successful. So, you're right. I mean, what happened to all those cases?
Yeah, they've quieted down on all that for sure. And didn't the judge, like, outright say, like, I don't care what I see, he's gonna be guilty or I'm gonna throw him in. It's just
Yeah,
something outrageous, like, ugh.
exactly.
They're not even trying to hide the bias anymore, and they haven't for a long time. But I wanna know about you, DeVory. How did you get into this whole space? How did you go from basically being were you a Marine or no, you were in the Navy? Let me see here.
In the army.
In the Army. Oops, that's
Yes.
the one I forgot. Yeah, how did you go from US Army vet to YouTube, political commentator?
Well, it was definitely a journey. When I left the military, I didn't think I would be doing YouTube or commentating on politics at this point. I always had this other idea in my mind that I would be more into business, entrepreneurship, and I had a lot of ups and downs in that area of my life, and there was some successes and then some failures for sure. But one thing that I picked up along the way was when I first actually started talking about mindset, because my wife, she was really into politics. And I would always tell her, yeah, but it's just people's mindset, like think about it. What this party, right? And I'm talking about the Democrats, their mindset is compassion is more of a priority than law and order. That's why they're letting the illegals into the country in the way that they do. And what's funny is there's a huge contradiction with their compassion because they don't have the same for our own veterans. That's a whole nother thing. But anyways, my wife and I, we would always talk about these conversations, and I would always, talk about mindset. And so I was really into shooting content about mindset is when I first started on YouTube. And then I was doing that for a while. And then eventually I went more into my home improvement company that I had. And so I kind of went away from YouTube for a bit. That really took up like 24/7 of my time, like every single day. And then finally this year, I got to a point where I was like, you know what? There's just so much craziness happening, not just in California where I'm from. I mean, I can go on and on and on about California, but with our children, okay, with men and women's sports, with the weaponization against Trump. There's just so much nonsense. And then the lies that they're saying on the news that to the point where these people are no longer journalists. Let's just understand these people are activists at this point. And I continue to see all that. And it just really motivated me to say, listen, I have the skills. I love talking about mindset. I love talking about common sense things. I have an opinion for sure. And I think there's a lot of people who don't really have maybe the resources or the skills I have. And I think it's maybe part of my purpose to be that person that can share their voice across YouTube and on the internet about how so many other Americans feel, because a lot of people hit me up every day saying that's exactly the way that I feel. That's exactly the way that I think. And so I'm really happy and grateful to be a voice for kind of like the silent part of this country that really feels like their voice isn't being heard. And I think that's really why Trump is so huge, because he represents that voice. He may not be, a saint, but at the end of the day, he tells people exactly how a lot of Americans feel. And I think you have to have his personality to be able to deliver it the way that he does. And so I appreciate him for that. And that's why I do the content now.
It's funny the effect that social media has had on this election cycle, and everyone talks about. I think number one, podcasting has really, I think, I think done a lot of the damage that the propaganda from the legacy media
Yeah.
has served us up. And also, I think, God, do you think a Trump win will mark the end of the legacy media journalist, or are they just going to be even more kind of frantic and clueless and angry?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's another thing that has really motivated me with this channel and the show, is that I know I'm seeing the writing on the wall, which is, and this is actually an entrepreneurship, is usually you can see a shift that's happening that's going to be similar to 2009 when the iPhone came around. Most people who were paying attention could see how big of an impact that would make on the world. Because before then, it was still like a flip phone, right? When the iPhone came out, that was really a change in the way that people started to live. And then, of course, social media became a thing that really changed the way people live. And now YouTube and podcasts are really changing the way people consume news. And clearly, whether Trump wins or not, I think the damage is already done. I think even if he lost, people like the legacy media has been exposed. Like, it's so bad that you even have CNN, who criticizes MSNBC all the time. Like, it's that bad. Like, they can see how propaganda filled they are as networks. Like, it's just pure activism at this point. And here's the bottom line: the numbers support that. So who cares about what some guy on YouTube is saying? Just look at the numbers. There was a study that came out this year that said 30% of Americans get their news from YouTube now. So imagine what's going to happen when boomers, right, leave this planet and go home, right? What happens when sports are starting to find different platforms to broadcast, right? We're talking NFL, NBA, like they don't really depend
Really?
on,
You see that? Like,
exactly.
no more ESPN, no more Yes Network.
Right. So, in short, if he wins, I think it's just going to accelerate it even more, because I think he will prove that a presidential candidate does not need the legacy media to get elected. They can literally do everything just with podcasts. I mean, that's what we got to see, especially with JD Vance. I mean, the amount of podcasts he did, I think was crazy. Definitely Trump. And so moving forward, what is the point, right? I mean, I think we should have debates with podcasts. I think that would be effective moving forward. So hopefully that kind of answers your question.
And then on the flip side, if Kamala wins, it's almost like the legacy media has 100% the ability to install a candidate, because then it's like she's no longer even just like we propped her up because she's a woman, because she was on Biden's ticket and she gets all the campaign money. It's like, well, no, she was straight up not qualified and not liked, and the legacy media was still able to help her win. So I hope it doesn't go that way. I'm trying not to be black-pilled.
Yeah, well, you should be prepared either way, because it is something at this point out of our control. But I will say this: if she does win, I don't think it's that the media really had a hand. They did play a huge role in it. There's no question. But the question that will come from it is, how did she win? So if she won because Roe v. Wade was massively underestimated by the Republicans, then we have our answer, right? I think that's the only way that she truly wins. I mean, anybody who is struggling, like living not like paycheck to paycheck, right? They have a 9 to 5. The insurance has doubled, right? The gas is high. I mean, these individuals, I can't see how people like that who are stressed that night are going to actually vote for her. I think it's the people who clearly are caught up in the propaganda from MSNBC who are really going to show up and vote for her in larger numbers, and then obviously people who hate Trump. But I don't think that is enough. I think it's the Roe v. Wade thing that's going to put her over the line if that happens. I haven't seen anything yet that makes me believe that, because I like to look at the numbers. I haven't seen anything yet, but yeah, if she wins, I mean, what an argument can be made of like how crazy these media companies have become with the way they're able to manipulate Americans into buying into talking points that are not actually rooted in any truth.
Yeah, the manipulation is crazy. This is, I guess, a commercial that has been going around. And this, I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'm just going to play a little bit of it if you haven't seen it already.
Dr. Davis, what do I do?
John, she needs an abortion or she's going to die from the pregnancy.
Sorry, that's not happening.
What are you doing? Who are you?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we banned abortion. No exceptions.
You can't do this. She's dying.
I won the last election, so it's my decision. But don't worry, you can still have children, just not with her.
Like, so this is like a non-situation. If you're,
Wow.
have you seen this before?
No, it's the first time I actually seen it.
Oh
I mean,
my
I
God.
saw it on social media, but I
Yeah.
didn't try to see it.
If
Yeah.
you're like bleeding, or so you should rush yourself to the hospital. You shouldn't be like on the
course.
floor of your living room figuring it out. So I just can't imagine a
Yeah.
scenario. And you should be up on your OBGYN visits. Like, most of the time, if you have an issue, like early in your pregnancy to look out for. It's this is just like, I think, a non-scenario, or they're banking off of like the most rare scenario where you have like the baby isn't fit to carry to term, and I mean, like, you have to like pass it through or whatever. Maybe you need a little bit of help, but that's such a rare scenario, and they're scaring girls and women with commercials like this to think like, well, this is just such a common occurrence that if you don't vote for Kamala, you're gonna die on a Persian carpet or whatever.
Right. I mean, it actually shows you what the Democratic Party thinks of the intelligence of our American citizens. I mean, they think you're that stupid. Like, literally, they really do believe that, hey, this is going to work because we know there's no way that they will challenge this. They won't do their research. They won't apply common sense. I mean, everyone knows, like, hey, if you're having issues, clearly you'd be calling your doctor or you'd be going to the hospital. I mean, that this commercial is highly misleading. And you know what? It's an example of what they accuse Trump of doing. They accuse him of dark rhetoric, putting fear in the hearts of Americans with the whole illegal migrants and stuff like that. But this is exactly what they say he's doing. This is definitely fear, and there is no truth to this. And I listen. I think this is craziness. I mean, I can't really find the words because I haven't even seen this. This is the first time he's seen it. I just don't think anybody with common sense or anybody who's truly struggling in the financial department, I don't think when they see that, they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to go vote for Vice President Harris. I really do think it's the people who've already bought into the lie. And then what is that, an ad for men? You think like, what is that?
Right. Well, they've tried this whole like, well, if you, I'm talking to the men here. If you care about your daughter or your girlfriend or your wife or your sisters, then you should be voting for Kamala. And then it's like, okay, the broad stroke is okay if you care about women's rights or women's health. But then when you really break it down, it's like, okay, if you're a dad and you really care about your daughter, how about raise her in such a way that she won't even that she will not be in a position to want or need an abortion. Like, dial it all the way back so that you don't even have to put yourself in this position. And
Right.
it's the left that's been conflated. They've been saying for years now, well, abortions are part of healthcare, and that's how they get to take the meaning away from it. Like, no, it's not murder anymore. It's just healthcare, and it's just like going for a checkup. They've really glossed over what it really is.
Yeah, it's a radical position for sure. And what's interesting is that Kamala Harris is extremely radical. I mean, this is why if she loses, it'll be because they try to turn her into someone she's not. She doesn't believe in 95% of the things they have her saying. She does not believe in that whatsoever. The 2019 Kamala Harris, that's who she really is. If they let her run that campaign today, she'd come off definitely more believable. In fact, I think she'd probably connect with people even more. But I don't think this is going to work. And I think why do they put so much into this? It's because they have nothing else, right? You can't run the campaign saying Trump is bad, so vote for me. You definitely can't run a campaign saying, well, I'm going to fix the economy, even though I broke it. I'm going to secure the border, even though I opened it up. I mean, and I know she's not the one who issued the executive order. I just know that she's going to be a puppet, just like Joe Biden. So, at the end of the day, she has zero credibility. So the only thing that they could use is this, because again, if we go back to 2020, what did they use to get people to vote for Joe Biden besides Trump was bad? Oh, racism, George Floyd, BLM. Why? Because it was such an emotional trigger for people. Well, this is their emotional
Right.
trigger in this election. But
You're
again,
right.
I don't think the only difference is 2020, we didn't have 70% of the country believing we were going in the wrong direction. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's their use of the emotional triggers, and we're not in the summer of love anymore. It's like, and they haven't thrown another pandemic at us, which I thought they might before the election. Everyone's kind of been waiting, almost like this. Okay, I feel like since September, people have been like, okay, what is something big and scary going to happen? Is the internet going to go down? Is there going to be another Wuhan bat flu? And now the drudging up of the abortion topic, it just seems like it's just not enough. I've been saying, if like your life is so good that you have like just the luxury to worry about abortion, like you're doing pretty good. And that's why I think it's skewing mostly to these young, like college educated women that, that's the demographic Kamala's doing the best with, is like women under 30, single, college educated. And it's like, if abortion is your biggest worry, you're doing pretty good in life. Okay. If the price of groceries isn't bothering you, if you're not walking around your city feeling unsafe, that you're going to get murdered by an illegal, like, yeah, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
And maybe you're a little insulated.
Yeah. It's a true test. Tomorrow's a true test to see where this country really is at, because both sides have been screaming about the direction this country is going, but we're going to get an actual, like, accurate, like, okay, here's where the country really is. Because obviously if she wins, then we know the country is going in the direction of like, yeah, this whole abortion thing is serious. Trump is a threat to the democracy, which we know he isn't. Okay, I know. But maybe they've gotten enough people to believe that. I hope not. I don't have problem with people having a different opinion than I do. My problem with the Democrats is they're trying to change the Constitution. They're trying to change the law to match their ideology, like the way that they want to do things. And so that is my problem with them. So I think it's a true test. I mean, we'll see what happens, but my heart, Chrissy, is that it's not going to work. Trump is going to win, because I still believe there are Americans out there that have some level of common sense, and I don't think the country is that far gone yet. And I think for example, we need Trump to win because it's a balance of how crazy and how far left they've gone over the past 4 years. Right. So they say that Trump He wants to weaponize the government to go after his political opponents. You guys have already done that. You know,
Yes.
he wants to monitor your menstrual cycles. You know, he wants to take away your rights. Didn't you guys do that with the COVID vaccines? You basically threatened people that if you didn't take it, we were going to fire you. So what happened to my
Yep.
body, my choice then? Right. So
Yep.
they've already done all the things that they have accused him of doing. And so I think, like I said, that this is a test to see, you know, do Americans really buy into that stuff? I don't think they do.
And well, you know, I wonder why the my body, my choice thing doesn't come up on the abortion topic, because actually the sperm is what decides the gender of the baby. Like that's where the information is. So I can't get well, it came from my body, my choice. All right. It's hard for me to say that without sounding
It's one of those topics that I've been saying this recently. Like, America is a family, and everyone has a family. You have a family, I have one. And every family has some crazy stuff that's happening, you know, or that one person in the family that just can't get right, or that one traumatic event that no one wants to talk about, right? And child sex trafficking, this abortion thing, which is really murder. This country really doesn't want to have that conversation in an honest way. They've been using fear tactics to have that conversation, which is pretty sad. Because who's speaking for the babies who can survive outside the womb? I mean, this is what I don't get. Even if I had to compromise, why would I ever compromise on late-term abortions? I mean, that's craziness. If the baby can survive and you don't want it, fine. Leave it up for adoption. I was adopted. What's the problem? You know, so it's just crazy that even in a position where if we had to compromise as a country, can we even have the conversation about adoption? They don't even want to do that. It's just a free for all. Hey, whenever you want to, you can murder that baby whenever you want to. It doesn't matter. Like, that's craziness.
Yeah, well, what they don't tell you is how profitable all the baby parts are and who profits from them. Like, you know, they don't tell you that your placenta is worth $50,000 because of the stem cells, and they'll just be like, and yet when I asked to take mine home, they're like, "Huh? What?" Like, nobody does that. I was like, "Yeah, even more. I want it even more now. Okay, get it for me."
Right.
And they had to
I didn't know that. $50,000?
$50,000, and
Wow.
not like you could sell it on eBay or something, but that's what they
Right.
can get from uh just harvesting it. And yeah, they make you do, I think, several like blood tests. I think it's for hepatitis, and then you got to provide your own little cooler. And then they ask you, like, what are you going to do with it? And it's like, I'm not going to bake it into cookies and serve it to people. Okay. Like, I'm just going to probably I just don't want you guys to have it, is the
Right.
point. So,
Right.
and it's like, if we've got billions of dollars for wars we don't need to be involved in, then yeah, maybe we could channel some money into beefing up you know, adoption resources and you know, helping women out there rather than
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah, for me, Chrissy, the what's interesting for me when I have to talk about this stuff is, how could the Democrats be the party that really cares about women's health when the Black community is the number one leader in abortions? Like, make that make sense. Make it make sense where you're telling, we want to protect women's rights, but you allow men to play in women's sports. And not even just this is speculation. You guys tried to change Title IX. You tried to change the law that would make it legal for men to play in women's sports. So, you know, it's too far gone to the left. And I just think that there's a cause and effect in life. There are seasons in life, and I think the season of craziness has come, and now the season of common sense is going to make its debut. And I think that is where we are. I mean, think about it. You had George Bush, right? Which is just all chaos. And then housing crisis takes place. Obama comes in. He tries to bring what? Peace. Okay, things kind of dial down. Things didn't really improve, but it wasn't as chaotic as it was when the housing crash happened in 2009. And then what happens? Then Trump comes, and then Joe Biden. And then now, is it going to be Trump or Kamala Harris? I would say Trump, because he's the opposite of Joe Biden. I think our country has a habit of going back and forth, especially when policies have affected like the daily stuff, gas, electricity, cost of living, things like that.
Yeah. And plus, it's like a two-party system, so I feel like it's always going to be feeling like we're going back and forth. Oh, Celine, thank you for the super chat. I already voted early for Trump in person. I feel like a minority as a woman because I've loved him since 2016. Good for you, Celine. It took me till 2018 to get on board, but you were smart and you got it right away. Good job, Celine. That's a cute dog too. Celine, again, it's sad that a lot of women seem to only care about abortion. They sound crazy how unhinged they talk about it too. Well, it's fear. It really is fear. Because I remember being college aged and, in my 20s, and it's when you're more thinking about that. And a lot of it manifests from how they think about men. And if you're choosing if you're choosing bad men you don't want to settle down with and start a family with, you're going to be more open to the idea of an abortion because you just are so afraid to be connected to the poor men that you're choosing. And there's something about creating a life with somebody that really makes it real. And if you can just toss that away, if you can undo that, then it's almost like your decision isn't real. Like you're still living like in La La Land, and you can still like fuck around and none of it matters. And
Well,
it's hard.
there's zero accountability, right? And what's interesting is that if if she wins, that will mean that it's women who have decided who the president is. And if that takes this country off a cliff, then it will be women who will be to blame, unfortunately. And I only say that not as a dig at women. It's just that even if we talk about gender, even on the men's side, we have this problem. There is a epidemic of men who are just soft and weak. They don't want to work their asses off on anything. They don't want to take any risk. They don't want any leadership or any level of responsibility. And that's a problem in this world because we need strong leaders. And then on the women's side, we have a lot of women who are buying into this mentality of like, hey, if you come in last place, you should still get a trophy. Or, they want to be politically correct, or they want to push this abortion thing, which is really a manufactured problem. This is a first world problem, Chrissy. Think about it. You think people like in Brazil and all these other countries, this is what they're struggling over? Absolutely not. Right. It's funny that in America, this is what we are having to debate over, when really we should be debating about our economy, our border, our companies, businesses, education, our children. That should be what's 95% of our energy, not this. And again, I only say men and women because both men and women are playing a role in this election. It's weak men who will support this whole, well, we need to elect her because she's a woman. It's time for a woman. Why can't we just elect someone who's going to do the best for our country? Why do we have to make it about skin color or gender or any of that? Why not just make it about who's going to get the job done? And so, yeah, that right there is something that I'm if I'm worried about anything, it's kind of that dynamic. Like, how far gone are we when we talk about the cultural war or the gender roles that seem to be so controversial in our country today? How much is that going to bleed over into politics?
Right.
Because I think that is where we are. Like, if you go back 4 years ago, it was dating, right? All that stuff, a red pill, and it was a little viral and stuff. But now it's like it's in politics. That's what this election has kind of turned into. And I hope that's not what decides this election, of course.
When people talk about like the difference over the decades and now, we've seen all the memes with like our parents and our grandparents, like, oh, let's buy a house. And then they fast forward. It's like millennials like, oh, I can't afford a cup of coffee. It's like, I think it's because I think abortion is a big a big reason for it's almost like abortion is the marker, like how comfortable we are with abortion and how comfortable women are getting abortions shows just it's just like, yeah, this is the thing that kind of keeps us as a generation from growing up. Like
Of
if
course.
we have fewer, it's like, yeah, maybe because women will fight harder because they did. It's like I'm not saying this well, but I think it's like I think women are trying to just avoid a certain type of woman is trying to avoid just facing consequences.
Yes, it's a certain
Like
type.
you want your decisions to just not matter,
Yeah,
going into your 30s. You just want to like there's freedom and then there's like, okay, for how long are you going to fuck around and not really find
right.
a path and not really fulfill your purpose?
Well, life is all about, or part of life is definitely about trade-offs. So if you forego like wanting to be married and have kids, you're trading what? You're trading that opportunity of finding the right guy who may financially be able to help you or support that type of lifestyle. If you wait too long, and there's plenty of that whole conversation online, that has been debated to the end of the earth. But the results tell the story, Chrissy, where our parents, our grandparents have shown that being married first and then having children is going to yield better results than someone who is single parent, wants to have a kid on their own. I mean, there's a lot of women out there that truly believe I don't need a man. I'm going to have this kid on my own and I'm going to do me. But what about the kid? Like I
Yeah.
I
It's really
myself was
selfish.
right. I myself was adopted. I had a single parent, my mother. And it's tough as a dude to be raised by your mother and not have a father. That's the toughest thing because you don't know how to be a man. And
Hmm.
this world needs strong men, right? And you can't become a strong man from your mother. You've got to learn that by going out in the world, either by having a father who's a strong man, or luckily for me, I actually joined the military. So that really helped me out. But the relevance of me saying all this is because if it goes back to that question, if Donald Trump loses, it will be because of weak men, right? And this whole women in the suburbs who just believe in this manufactured problem called abortion. I mean, it's a real thing. When I say manufactured, I'm saying that's not really the problem in this country. And there's not really anything Kamala Harris can do because they already overturned it and they're not going to go back. So my point
Is
is
that
that
impossible? Is it impossible to go back?
this Supreme Court will not go back on what they just did. There's no way they would. There's no way. They overturned it because clearly it's a state's issue and it should have been.
Yeah.
So, and if you think about it, I say it this way, it's a healthy compromise. So if you kept it in place, it was a one-sided decision. By repealing it and sending it back to the states, it's now a compromise on both sides. Meaning, if you want to get abortions all day, then you can go to California, you can go to New York, you can go to all these states that support it. If you don't believe in that stuff, then you can live in a state that doesn't believe in it either. So it's an actual great example of a democracy where the voice of the people really have a say in it. Why would you leave it up to the federal government? It's the whole argument is a big contradiction. You say, I don't want the government in my business,
Hmm.
but you want the government to pass a federal law. So how does that make sense? So either way, the government's going to be involved. It just depends on what degree, and should it be federal or state? And I definitely believe it should be state for sure.
Right. And the left has done such a good job of just solidifying the notion that like, yeah, the government get the government out of a woman's body. It should make her own choice. Yet if you want to go to Planned Parenthood and get yourself a cheap abortion, who do you think is paying for that? Do you think the government's
Right.
not involved in that?
Right. And it goes back to Well, the government shouldn't be making decisions when it comes to my body. Well, where was that outrage during COVID then?
Yep. Yeah. It's so hypocritical.
Right? Where we were literally losing jobs and careers over that. I think that is, something that we should learn from, right? So it's a tough thing. It's a conversation. It's a topic. Like I said, if this was a family, it would be that topic that no one wants to talk about at the dinner table, because as soon as we start talking about it, it turns into an argument, right?
Hmm.
But I just think that I think this country would be better off with a compromise, which is where we are now, than a ban either way. Because if they return it back, right? Let's say they, like you were asking me, is it possible? It's possible, but will they do it? I don't think so. But let's say they did do it. Well, will it be the way it was, or will they go even more extreme? Meaning, if I'm from Utah and I own a Catholic hospital, do I have to make sure this woman can get a abortion, even though
Hmm.
religiously I don't believe in that? We don't support it. Like, how far will they go? Will they mandate these hospitals to do it, even though it's against their religion? Right. So again, that's what I'm saying is it's not federally. It just doesn't work for the country. I think state, it's a healthy thing.
Yeah. I think so many people just don't truly understand the issue, and get uh they get kind of brought in by just fear and like, oh God, I'm gonna lose my freedom. I'm gonna lose my ability to just live consequence free.
Right.
Very interesting, but kind of sad. It's funny that you're from California, I'm from New York. It's like the two places that you, you can get your late term abortion.
Right.
Hooray!
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
why is Roe v. Wade so important this election style? Is it because it was just recently overturned, or is it because like the Dems just really they don't have
Yeah.
their
Well,
their their
yeah,
swimmer
I
blood?
think the answer we'll find out tomorrow, like how
Yeah.
important, of course. But I think 2022 was a sign that definitely it's a legitimate issue, where if you leave it up to the people of a state, maybe they see it differently than what you might initially think, right? There were Republican states that actually voted moderately on this issue, and people were not expecting that. So we'll find out tomorrow. Uh, but again, it's an issue that has been amplified by the machine, right? Also known as the Democratic Party and the legacy media, who runs propaganda when it comes to Project 2025, trying to tell women that Trump is going to monitor your menstrual cycles. Okay. It's funny. They speak to, like that video you showed me. They speak to people like we're stupid or something. Like, there's three branches of government. Everybody forgets this for some reason.
Yeah,
Like,
they really do think you're stupid. I
yeah,
think we're all dumb.
yeah.
Um,
So, mhm.
and talking about social media, I wonder if it's like social media has allowed us to see so much of people, not just like regular people like you and I and people watching, but like celebrities, and that's part of why we're meeting an end of celebrity culture, I think. But I wonder if, I'll run into these people that are, oh, I'm not voting for Trump because I don't agree with him on everything, or I don't like this one aspect of his personality, or I don't like this one group of voters that he attracts. And I wonder if that's because of social media. It's like the expectation is that you need to like everything about a person because social media kind of sets up the expectation that you could know everything. And I don't think people were saying this like, "Oh, I'm not gonna vote for Kennedy, for JFK because, he's probably cheating on his wife with Marilyn Monroe or whatever." Well, people didn't know or they didn't care.
Right. Well, yeah, the algorithm knows what it's doing. There was a study that was done that the word racist, or all these terms that they are using today, um, that it spiked because of the Google and uh, Twitter and IG and Facebook. The algorithm has one purpose: keep people on the platform as long as possible. Version one of that was showing people content that was controversial, right? So if you remember, probably during Trump's presidency, we started to see the algorithm really push racism. Okay. Anybody that was talking about it, any video that may have looked like someone was being racist, when in most cases they probably were not. They were pushing that so much that people were just being fed that this is how the world is. So, meaning what? Every single day, Americans are being programmed to believe that the country they live in is racist, when really it's not. It's like it's like this. It's like growing up in Albany, New York, and never leaving Albany. You have no idea what the world really has to offer. You have no idea of the different belief systems, the perceptions, what's really happening out there. You only know what's happening in Albany. And that's how the social media is. You're in your own echo chamber, in a sense, where the algorithm is showing you not even necessarily what you like, it's what you engage in, which leads me to version 2. Now we're on this point where the algorithm shows you what you engage in, and they know what is going to make you engage. It's called like rage baiting at this point. The algorithm is purposely showing you stuff that is going to trigger you so much that you have no choice but to say something. And it just keeps feeding you that over and over and over again. And so what happens? Your whole algorithm is filled with stuff you don't really agree with because they know that's what you've been engaging with. So I have this on X right now where I think I'd probably say 60% of my feed is people I don't agree with. Why? Because they posted something and I was like, oh, this is BS. I have to say something. Well, by me saying something, now the algorithm is showing them to me again over and over.
Like you're being baited. Yeah.
Right.
Like, oh, what about this? You want to say something about this?
Exactly. So you have to remember that there's a world bigger than what you see, and there's a different side to all these issues. It's just not one side. And I think it's healthy to see how people think about these different issues that we are constantly fighting over as a country, but not to the purpose of trying to demonize our fellow Americans, but to understand, like, why do you see it the way that you do? It's hard to do that when the algorithm keeps showing you content that is very violent or triggering, or it just turns you off. So when you see someone who may support that idea, you have no interest in wanting to talk to them because on social media, you see them a certain way. It's like people who support Trump. A lot of people don't even care to have a conversation and ask the question, why do you support Trump? What is it that you see? They don't care to even ask those questions because on social media, they only see what the algorithm shows them, which may be Trump supporters doing something that may be bad, or maybe it's not bad, but the way that it's shown, they may take it that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the way to deal with that is just to disregard the whole person, and it's easier. You'd be like, well, let's just call them racist or transphobic or whatever it is, so you can just move on and you don't have to have a paradigm shift.
That's the word, paradigm shift. That's exactly what it is.
You're like, oh God, and you got to unravel everything else, and that's messy. Do you think the Democrats have underestimated Trump, or are they just so out of touch with their base, or is it both?
I think they've actually underestimated their base. I think it's a classical lesson of what you obsess over is who you ultimately become. Right? So think about it. If you have a bad breakup and you're so obsessed with your ex that you won't let them go, who do you become? You literally become your ex. Right? Because that all you do is you think, you talk, you keep going back to it. You literally become the thing that you're obsessing over. And the other could be true, where you obsess over something that's positive, of course. So my point being is that the Democratic Party, they have obsessed over Trump so much that they have become the very thing they accuse him of being or doing. And as a result, they've forgotten the very principles on why they are called the Democratic Party, what has actually made them successful in the past. And as a result, key groups like minorities, Black people, Latinos, working class, blue collar, unions, families, they're all leaving that party and they're registering as Republican. By the way, this is not my opinion. This is what the numbers say. Since 2020, there are more people registered as Republicans and independents than Democrats. Democrats are the people who've lost a lot of their base, just in general. And part of it is also because they've been obsessing over the progressive movement in their party. And, you know, when you have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, clearly that plays a role. And I think also, while we're on this point, I don't think, maybe it explains why they're willing to allow the amount of illegal immigrants into our country, because maybe somewhere along the road, they saw this coming. Maybe they saw the fact that, yeah, Black people, we're probably not going to be able to depend on them anymore in the future when it comes to getting votes. We're probably not going to be able to depend on the working class. This might be, you know, a theory, but whether it's true or not, it's playing out this way. So maybe they saw it, and that's why they've allowed the illegals to come into the country, because they know illegals are not going to vote for Donald Trump. They're going to vote for the Democrats. They are the ones who have told them to come to this country. And whether they told them directly or indirectly, everybody knows. Why would so many people come to this country? They come to this country because they know it's easy to cross the border. If it wasn't, they wouldn't come, right?
And
So
you get free stuff. Yep.
Exactly. So I think to answer your question, that it's bigger than Trump. I tell people this all the time. This whole thing is bigger than Trump. Like, if Trump, you know, let's say he served 4 years and then we never heard from him after that, what we're dealing with, we're going to continue to deal with. This is way bigger than him. And I think the Democratic Party, it's like the legacy media. They have sacrificed their credibility and their principles because they want to get Trump so bad. So who cares about the truth? Who cares about taking care of the working class? What's our number one priority is making sure Trump doesn't make it back to the White House. That right there is just a sad thing.
Yeah, your metaphor about the breakup is really astute, because it's like and I know when women go through a breakup, and if it's not a healthy breakup, what do they sit and do? They're on Instagram, they're checking out they kind of keep tabs for a few months and they start looking, who is he dating now? Maybe they compare themselves to that person, or if they don't know who they're dating now, they're just sort of racking their brain like, oh, what version of myself could I have been that would have kept me from being dumped. And I wonder if the legacy media is going through that now, like, oh, what version of us do we have to be to keep the viewer, to keep the American public's attention? And it's like, there is no version. It's like the people are just done. And it's like,
Right.
they're thinking like, how much should we hate Trump this way? Should we shit talk him this way? Like, what can we do to get you guys back? And people are like, no, we're just done.
Yeah, it's one of those things where shoot first, ask questions later. They would rather pretty much make sure Trump doesn't make it back to the White House. Who cares about the truth? Who cares about what's right or wrong? The only thing that matters is stopping him. This is why every question that Kamala Harris has been asked has always gone back to Trump this, Trump that. I mean, it's frightening that our political leaders can become this obsessed with Donald Trump that they forget to literally do their jobs.
Yep.
You know, and this is even Republicans. I mean, they have been guilty at not doing their jobs either, which is why you're talking to someone who truly believes that if the Republicans had their way, he wouldn't be the nominee. They would have put someone else in there. But it's the people. It's people like me, you, and whoever else supports him that voted for him in a primary, which Kamala Harris did not get that luxury, of course, that have put him in that place. And I don't think Republicans even like it, because their establishment, they don't like that someone's an outsider who really is trying to put the interest of Americans first. And that's why there's so much resistance and fight against this movement because it does challenge, you know, everything about them and what they believe in.
Yeah, it challenges both sides. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think okay, we got a couple of questions from it's Celine. I've been hated on for being pro-life. It's sad. You know what? Screw those people because they're wrong and you're right. Simple as that. Patriotic Gestalt, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for interviewing DeVory. The algorithm revealed him to me 2 months ago.
Oh,
Look
lovely.
at that. You have a Asian fan there.
I appreciate it. That's
Um,
wonderful.
I wrote this down before when you were talking about serving in the military. Do you think you gravitated towards the military because you felt a lack of a father figure in your life?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. When I was in high school, I was in JROTC, which is high school version of ROTC, which usually you go to college for that. Um, and so I had already known when I was a part of that I wanted to be in the military. At the time, my mother, she was sick, so I had to go live with some other people, and they didn't let me play any sports. The only thing they did let me do was participate in JRTC. So I think I was going to join it regardless. But yeah, I would say so. A lot of people in the military, you're only in there for 3 reasons. One, your family was in there, so you
Mm.
know it's kind of you're next. 2, you have nowhere else to go. You got nothing else going for you. You have no money, and so the military seems to be the sensible thing. Or 3, you really do love your country. You're very patriotic, and you're motivated by something that recently happened in the country, and so you want to join the military. And so I would be like number 2, where I didn't have any because my mother had passed away, so I didn't have anyone to go to. I had no one there. It was just me, and so it made perfect sense, and it was a good choice. I learned a lot
How did your mom die?
from breast cancer.
Oh God, I'm sorry. How
Yeah,
old were you when that happened?
17.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
horrible.
yeah. But it all happens. It it See, this is the thing where our country is dealing with right now. It's a sad and horrible thing, but it's what has made me stronger, right? I don't want anything to happen to anybody, but there is a silver lining to the fact that if that never happened, I don't know where I'd be today, you know? And so I think as a country, as individuals, we shouldn't necessarily try to run away from confrontation or hardships, because I think in those times, that's when we get to learn more about ourselves, who we really are, and really why we're here. And I think I think COVID really is an example of waking people up to that type of thinking, where a lot of people were on autopilot, even with their kids. And it was COVID
Yeah.
that finally said, oh, wait a minute, I am a parent. Hold up. What is going on with my kid really? Because I drop my kid off at school at 7:30 in the morning and I don't see my kid until 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. at night. I'm tired. I mean, what else is there really to talk about? I mean, that's how a lot of parents were living. And then
Yeah.
COVID comes out of nowhere and like, boom, it's like, oh, wait, maybe there are more important things than just my career and dropping them off at daycare. Maybe I really need to learn who they are. And so I think what I'm saying is the hardship of COVID, I think, had a silver lining for a lot of people out there. They got
Yeah.
to really reconnect with life and what really matters to them. And so, yeah, losing her is tough, but it was it made me really focus in the military, which is why I was successful, I would say. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's really inspiring. And like to your point on COVID, it wasn't just like, yeah, I got a couple of days off with my kids. It's like, no, they were observing their kids and the teachers and the Zooms for like months and
Right.
months.
Right.
Everyone's doing their homework at the kitchen table every day. And like,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's amazing how comfortable like the teachers had all gotten. They didn't think there was anything wrong with what they were saying. They weren't being checked. And so it was probably a real surprise to have these parents start to actually respond and be really outspoken the way that we so much so that we deemed them all, what were they being called? Domestic terrorists?
Yeah,
Typing up.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah. Yeah, it's what you said earlier. It was a paradigm shift, right? Where people changed their perception of education as it pertained to their children and how the education system has really been failing them. And how maybe charter school or homeschooling maybe is not a bad alternative for some people out there. That's why now you see so many people, doing homeschooling. So many people have stopped giving their kids vaccines. That has been a paradigm shift as well. That's happening right now. So it's interesting how we have someone that's in this race, President Trump, who is for school choice, and Kamala Harris really isn't, but she keeps screaming about women's rights
Hmm.
and she wants to
Yeah,
help
that's
families.
interesting.
Yeah.
Why you mentioned earlier that like Kamala would have done better had she run the way she did in 2019. How come she couldn't do that now?
I think because there's too many smart people running her campaign.
Hmm.
I think they are book smart, analytical, data driven individuals who clearly have experience. I mean, let's be honest here. The people running her campaign, I mean, they've done the impossible. If she gets elected, I mean, I wouldn't be mad if they got a I don't know, some type of award,
No. Yeah.
because it's crazy how you could take someone at short notice like that, someone who's terrible, by the way, unlikable, and get them elected. So I don't think it's bad to say that, to their credit. However, I think it came at a cost because they're too smart. They've forgotten. It's called emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
So emotional intelligence is being able to know how to connect with people. That's really what it is. And clearly control your own emotions, but it's the connection of people. And they're too smart that they have zero emotional intelligence. When Trump walks in a room, his emotional intelligence is like the highest you can ever be around. Like, this guy can notice you, he can make you laugh, he can put a smile on your face, he'll shake your hand, and it feels authentic. He feels like he's made you the most important person in the room, right? Kamala Harris, she is a career robotic politician. That's not her. And so my point is I think the only time you're going to see some type of emotional intelligence out of her, where you're talking to the real Kamala Harris, where you get to really connect with her, is when she's talking about what she was running on in 2019. She wants Medicare for all. We know that. She wants to give amnesty to these illegals. She does. She does believe in taxpayer funding of transgender surgeries. She does that. She clearly does. She believes in raising taxes. There's no question.
Oh yeah.
She believes in
Crazy
bigger
spending.
government. She believes in the victimization of our citizens, which is the justification to create more government programs so they can print more money, right? I mean, that's really who she is. And by the way, I was just talking to someone earlier today where the thing about Kamala Harris is she's like a fighter who's never been challenged. Like, every single public office position she's held, she was never really challenged. The district attorney, I mean, they pretty much gave that to her. The attorney general, they gave that to her. And maybe they gave it to her as an oversimplification, but if you look at the politics of how she rose to those positions, you could conclude it was more than likely that they handed her those offices. And so vice president, same thing. And so this is the first time truly where she's been challenged, and we've seen how she's responded. I mean, Brett Baer is a great example of that,
Oh yeah.
And when Donald Trump is challenged, he rises to the occasion and he gets dirty. And some people love him for that, and some people hate him for that. But yeah, so hopefully we don't have a commander in chief who has never been in a fight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It was interesting what you're saying, like about all the handlers and people that are managing Kamala's campaign. It's
Mhm.
like you wonder if there is a personality under there, like someone that could be likable to somebody, or if it's just been so coached out of her. And the fact that she's not connecting with voters is because she's so heavily managed, and everything she
Mhm.
says is it's just gone through with a comb, and she can't even say what she wants anymore. Everything is like pre-approved talking points, and maybe that's why she sounds so like stilted, and her communication is not
Yeah.
flowing, and she's talking in circles, and it's word salad.
It's the worst. Think about it. This is why she should lose, by the way. Uh, it's the worst time to be that type of politician. I mean, don't do that, right? What I find interesting, Chrissy, is I could probably sell her better than she can sell herself. That's the problem with her, is there will be people who are speaking for her, and you're sitting there like, wow, why doesn't she say that? Right? I mean, to Donald Trump's credit, there are people who could probably explain his tariffs better than he can.
Hmm.
But the bottom line is he's not fake when he's talking, though. So it still resonates with people. If anything, I learned this in the military. They used to tell us all the time. Even if you don't know what you're talking about, sound like you know what you're talking about. Donald Trump sounds like he knows what he's talking about,
Mhm.
even though sometimes he's saying stuff and maybe the nerds out there are like, no, that's not correct. Okay, fine. But the point is that for the listener out there, they're like, oh, yeah, I feel exactly what he's saying. Kamala Harris, that is not who she is. And I think it's because they're making her talk about things that are not authentic to her. She doesn't believe in them. But if they had her talk again, she believes Donald Trump is a threat, which is why she has no problem talking about that, which is why that's the only flash of her being authentic we've seen. Her being truly energetic, her being confident is when she has to bag on Trump, right? But when it comes to
Right.
policy, that is out the window.
Yeah, she's not comfortable talking about that. And it makes sense. It's why she won't do Rogan.
Yeah.
Simon Ho, they send a team of police to unalive a pet squirrel, but roll out the red carpet for sex offenders, child abusers, and degenerates. Ugh, that's very sad but true, Simon.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a terrible thing.
Are you what's your feeling on Squirrel Gate, DeVory? We were talking about that a lot yesterday.
Yeah, I think that it's a viral story, of course. But it's there's a lot of truth to what's happening. I mean, why in America are we hearing about law enforcement raiding a house to get a pet squirrel and then kill it? I mean, like, what's going on here? Why are we not hearing about, hey, we just took out these gangs who've been taking over these apartment complexes? You know what I mean? Like, what about that? Right. So I think it's, of course, the legacy media, they're not going to really talk about this because they think it's silly. But I think even something that is silly or may seem that it's funny, there's a lot of truth to it. You know, it's like comedy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of truth to comedy, actually. And I
Yeah.
think this story, there's so much truth to it that it just makes you scratch your head. I mean, why again? Why are we even hearing that they are doing this? Why would they even do this? I mean, there's other ways that they could have handled it. But it's interesting. It's interesting to see. Will the animal advocates come out and say something? Where's PETA?
Right. Where's PETA? Exactly.
Yeah.
They've been quiet on this. I'm gonna look into that. Yeah, because I think the mainstream media has been quiet because it's a gross example of government overreach in a blue state in New York. I think that's why they're kind of like, don't look at that. Don't pay
Yeah.
attention to what they can do.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Ass Pennies. That's a great name. Thank you for the super chat. Please don't fuck this up tomorrow, America. Prayers and love from Canada. Should I cross the border and vote with no ID? Yes, you should.
Yeah, if you come to California, you shouldn't have a problem.
I voted in on Sunday. I I showed, and I always like make it a point to show my ID because I think it's just weird that you're not required to. But I
Yeah.
showed the lady my ID. It was as if I had showed her a nude photo. She was like, "Oh, I don't need to see that." And I was like, Look at it. I wanted to bird box her. I wanted to be like, look at it.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Voter
Not
ID.
having it.
Again, it's zero common sense on that issue.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. In California now, it's illegal to even ask somebody for their ID. It's crazy.
Yeah, but if you want to buy alcohol.
Right?
Well, not me. I don't really get carded anymore. Matthew Hammond, I have come to the conclusion the irrational people that hate Trump have never seen him talk outside of media sound bites. Absolutely, Matthew. Yep.
Yeah.
And their algorithm keeps serving them up more of the same, and they're trapped.
Yeah. I was talking about this to my wife earlier. It's funny how Joe Biden is the true racist in the government. Okay. This guy clearly had racism towards Justice Thomas when he was first getting appointed, in the way that he addressed him and everything. There's videotapes on it on YouTube. It's crazy. And not to mention, he didn't want his kids going to the same school as black people.
I've heard that sound clip. Yeah.
And then he created the crime bill. And then clearly in 2020, when we all heard, yeah, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. I mean, I just find it rich that so many people like that, Matthew is saying, they only go by what they hear. And the thing about life is you shouldn't believe anything you hear, and like literally half of what you see, because it's a perception thing, right? The media can make you see things in a way that it's not really the truth. And so you have to be willing to do your own research. And when people do, they find out that Trump is not what they say he is. And by the way, the people that I actually despise the most, I don't even despise the people who watch MSNBC every day. Like, I could see why they hate Trump, because MSNBC has a doctorate in demonizing Trump at this point, right? It's the people who knew Trump before he was the president that loved him, that supported
Whoopi
him.
Goldberg, all
Yeah.
the ladies on The View loved him.
Those
Yeah, all
people.
his
Yeah.
Hollywood peeps. Yep.
Yeah, those are the people that I despise, because they actually know the truth and they're deliberately lying, and they know. And in some cases, he actually helped them. There's plenty of cases of that. It's like the story of Michael Jackson living in his Trump Tower for a while. There was a R&B singer, I can't remember her name right now. Her family got murdered or something, and she lived in his tower for free.
Wow.
The funding of like the first generation of rappers in the 90s came from Trump. The funding of Jesse Jackson's campaign as a president. Like, if he's really racist, then why would those things take place? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, they're struggling. They're struggling to make him look bad. And I can't believe it's tomorrow. I really can't believe it's tomorrow. I feel like his campaign has been, well, in a sense, since 2015. But what did he officially declare in 2022? So this will be like an almost 2-year campaign compared to Kamala's, just since July, August, September. Yeah, just 3 months. But it seems like it's been a year of listening to Kamala's campaign. So do you think we'll have an answer tomorrow at any point?
Oh, we should have an answer because of early voting. I don't see why we wouldn't. I think at a minimum, we should have an idea of how it's going to turn out, because, like, for example, we should know North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona at a minimum. And if he has won all 3 of those states, then we kind of know what's going to happen. And New Hampshire, I'm interested to see what happens there. Nevada is going to take forever. They're claiming Pennsylvania will take forever too. When I say forever, 4 days, 5 days.
That is forever. Yeah,
I know, right? So yeah, Chrissy, I think Vivek said it well. He said, we're going to learn tomorrow whether or not our echo chambers has blinded us from what's really happening out there, or that history will just repeat itself, which means Trump will win. Because like we were talking about, social media, right? We see what we see. And that's everybody from the government down to regular people. So we're going to find out if, have we been blinded to what's happening in this country? Like I said, is Roe v. Wade really this issue that they've made it out to be? Will women show up in a way they've never shown up tomorrow? Because they haven't yet, but will they tomorrow? That we will find out. And if they don't, yeah, Trump is the president. It's clear as day. And by the way, there's so many people, because you're in New York, you have to know this by now. There's so many people that have come out to support Trump. I didn't see this in 2020.
That MSG rally really showed the whole country just how much love for Trump there is in New York. And of course, a lot of those people came in from like Staten Island and Jersey, but we're talking, what, 75,000 people just outside the garden, either trying to get in or just wanting to be a part of it, being around what was happening. I had a baby, but I would have loved to have gone in just to sort of feel that energy. It's really cool. Very exciting.
Yeah, I think if we put all our cards on the table, Trump's problem is January 6th, because the media won't let it go. His personality, because the media won't let it go. And abortion. That's it. Kamala Harris's problem is like, where do I start? The economy,
inflation,
immigration, inflation, all that stuff, right? And then on top of that, she's fake. She's not even likable. So I can't fathom that people in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the Midwest, like, they're going to truly vote for her because they have been damaged the most. Like California is terrible. It's really bad. I mean, I'm talking about the inflation, but I can't imagine people who live in these areas where blue collar and manufacturing and things like that, fracking is so crucial to their livelihood. I can't imagine how they feel. I mean, again, I heard it this way, where it was like the voter that's going to go vote and they truly hate Trump with a passion and they have Trump derangement syndrome, they're voting for Harris, no question. But the voter who's going to go vote because they hate Joe Biden, they're voting for Trump. Like, that is the difference. Right.
And then you have all the people that hate the Biden administration because of their Israel-Palestine stance.
Yeah, that too.
Which is an interesting wrinkle. Yeah.
That too.
But they probably won't. I think those people may not vote at all.
Which is a problem for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
They were never going to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I find it funny they try to hold him to this standard like he was going to get their vote. He was never going to get their vote because for the last 8 years, you guys have done everything you could to convince them not to. There was no going back at this point. The only question remains is, did Kamala Harris do enough to get their vote? No, she hasn't. So she's not going to get their vote. They'll vote third party or they'll stay home. That's what happens. And by the way, Chrissie, if she wins tomorrow, then all polls will have been wrong. Like, every metric will be broken. Like, history will be broken. Like, all conventional wisdom will go in the trash tomorrow if she wins.
Yeah, the poll people will have to pack up and go out of business because how do you show your face again the next election cycle?
Yeah.
Like, well, you've been wrong now so many years.
Exactly. I've never been polled before. So it's always a thing where I'm always a little, I don't know.
Yeah, if I get a text and it's not about like a Coach sale or some kind of sale, I'm just gonna delete it. I don't have time. I don't have time to answer anybody else.
Right.
It's interesting. Well, DeVory, oh my goodness. We'll see what happens. Wait, one more super chat from Matthew Hammond. Trump breaks down complex ideas into small phrases. Yeah, he's great at that.
Storyteller.
He's a man of the people.
Yeah,
he's a man of the people. DeVory, I love your content. You are truly fantastic. Tell the people where they can find you and what's coming up for you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on YouTube, DeVory Darkins, of course. And what's coming up is my continued shows speaking about the truth and providing common sense, right, in this uncommon times. And obviously, whatever happens tomorrow will drive what I end up talking about, but it will be about providing common sense. And whether Trump wins or loses, you know, I will be there to show up and be a voice for people.
Yeah, God, we'll either be celebrating or it's gonna be like a help group. It's gonna be like therapy. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you, DeVory, for your time tonight. Thank you so much to the chat for your comments and questions. You guys are pretty good tonight. Pretty well behaved. Pretty good. You guys get a gold star. And go out and vote. If you haven't voted already, go vote tomorrow.
Yes.
And we'll see you guys next time.